Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. Hey. Continuing the Taking the Nostalgia Goggles Off, Reliving Childhood Horror series for Halloween 2024. I almost didn't want to do this one, but there's no way I could have done this 31 films without mentioning this film. The reason why I didn't want to do it is because I probably waxed lyrical about this film in more videos than any other. It is, of course, you've seen the title, The Return of the Living Dead, the 1985 zombie horror film. Obviously such an iconic movie for me these days. Not only do I have it tattooed across my body in several places, it inspired the name of this very website, the Brrraaains part of Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life. I've had the pleasure of meeting people like Linnea Quigley. In fact, I interviewed her a couple of months ago as of time of recording. Go check that out. It was probably one of my dream interviews, and I'm super proud of the conversation we had there. The film is still to date one of my all-time favourite horror movies. I can watch it and enjoy it thoroughly while also seeing its problems and loving it for that more than anything else. However, one of the things about this film is I openly acknowledge, my God, I saw that this is not an appropriate watch for a child. It is as simple as that. I should not have seen this. And its style of zombie, at the time, I'd never seen before. The runners, the fast-moving zombies that were... And it's weird because nowadays you draw comparisons to things like 28 Days Later and all that, but that's not a zombie, you know, that's an infected human being and stuff like that. I know it's arguable what's really the difference, but there was obviously a difference. This was actual dead people rising out of the grave and then running and rugby tackling. The scene where like the cops and all that are just getting assaulted by them coming out of the woods. That shit is burned into my brain because it was terrifying. Because even when you're growing up, even as a child, you looked at zombies, and I'd seen Night of the Living Dead, I'd seen Dawn of the Dead and all of this stuff. The one thing that kind of made them less scary was that you could outrun them. As long as you could keep moving and this, that, whatever, you could handle a certain number of zombies, or you believed you could, that kind of thing. I watched The Return of the Living Dead as a child and saw what I didn't think you could handle, which was something violent, fast, intense. Now, of course, you know, as an adult, I'm like, how can they move like that if they're dead and all this nonsense and stuff like that? Of course, that's the fun of The Return of the Living Dead, breaking it apart and seeing all the issues. You know, skeleton rises out of the ground, completely a skeleton, yet its eyes are perfectly fine. It's silly, it's nonsensical, but it's part of the charm of this movie. I was terrified of this film because of how its zombies were portrayed. But my God, the manic energy of it. This film starts hot and ramps up and doesn't stop until the very end. But what really affected me, I think, mostly as a child was actually the ending. Of course, you know, there aren't going to be spoilers here to a certain degree, but this ending is incredibly depressing. With basically everybody dying, and it's suggesting that this shit isn't going to end anytime soon. As a child, you kind of just want at least a happy resolution. I did not get that in this film. It broke me. And even now, when I watch it, I find that ending not difficult to watch, but just so like... And part of it comes because I love the characters and stuff like that, but it's just like... It's just sad, you know? A sigh, because I didn't want it to end that way. So much of this film had an effect on me. In a positive light, though, I think. Whereas there are movies in this list that I think are darker, more horrible, more psychologically damaging potentially to a child. This one, I don't think has that level. But it does have moments like that that did affect me on a deeper sort of less, where I couldn't, as a child, fully understand the impact of what I was seeing. One of those, of course, is a character who proceeds to kill himself by putting himself in the furnace. It's an incredible scene that I love today. Like, I watched that scene and I'm just stunned by how horrifyingly dark and horrible it is, but also how beautifully emotional it is and all of that. That is damaging, because you can't understand the impact. All you're sort of seeing is, you know, the fear he must have felt, the depression, the horror in his heart, because he doesn't want to become a walking dead outside. So he's going to put himself in a furnace, which is a horrible way to go, particularly, you know, if you've seen the film. It ends on that shot of him screaming inside the goddamn furnace. It's so terribly horrible, you know. What happens to Linnea Quigley's character? Trash, you know, getting eating alive by all those crawling zombies. That's terrifying as well. What else? Oh, God. What happens to the paramedics when they just get rushed? The scene where one of the paramedics switches on the lights in the ambulance and the lights flash up and they're all just standing around it. that I still cite as one of the scariest scenes in a horror movie to date. I still watch that and I hate it. Like, I'm probably just like, nope, don't like that. Absolutely adore stuff like that. That's why I think this film, right, like from the scare perspective, has always stuck with me. And it's why I fell in love with it. Because I always, as I got older, I wanted to challenge myself to prove that wasn't as terrifying. And then as I'm getting older, I'm watching it and I'm seeing the comedy element. I'm loving that soundtrack. I'm seeing these sort of issues, the mistakes, makeup. You know, there are some zombies that are quite clearly like rosy cheeked. There's makeup ends here. There's all the silly bits and stuff like that I can now watch and appreciate from that perspective. And that makes it less terrifying overall. But I can never quite move away from the things that scared me as a youngster. I love it so goddamn much that it is one of the few films on the website to have a 10 out of 10. I get it. That's an unfair score. It is not a 10 out of 10 movie by logical standards. But personally, it is still to date my #1 horror movie. And over all the classics, over all the brilliance, and there are things like The Thing, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. These are all better made movies, of course they are, but none of them had the impact this film had on me. As I said, it even inspired this website's title. Lastly, I want to touch upon probably the most inappropriate thing, or at least it felt more inappropriate as a kid, was of course this scene has Linnea Quigley stripping off, as she often does, and dancing naked on top of a grave. It is an iconic Return of the Living Dead scene, and I love it. So I love the reaction they did the characters as much as anything else. And I love talking to her about that in the interview, or she brought it up, not me. It wasn't like I said to her, oh, tell me about dancing. It was about more, the question was about so I can't remember quite, but it was something about, you know, what she's recognised for and stuff like that. And she often says, oh yeah, people bring this up and things like that. Don't be weird, people bringing that up to her face and stuff like that. But it's an interesting conversation. It was, oh, that's right, it was about the shoot. It's the best and the worst sort of memory she has from the shoots of the Return of the Living Dead. And that's, she talked about being cold. And because obviously she basically had to be naked for a lot of this film. But anyway, that scene, so she's dancing naked on top of the grave and all of that stuff and all that. And obviously as a kid, that's well inappropriate. And also as a young boy growing up, well fucking confusing. What made it really confusing was, of course, she wore a flesh-coloured patch over her vagina, basically. So from a visual perspective, basically, she's got a Barbie doll look kind of thing going on there. Still topless, and still from behind, they do a shot where you can kind of see her naked ass and stuff like that. And she looks fantastic, of course she does. But that's right, back then that confused the fuck out of me as a kid. As an adult, I just find it hilariously funny. Just keep her pants on, right? Like, there's a simple resolution to this that doesn't make the whole scene, like, weird. Just keep her pants on. Like, you're basically putting her on pants anyway, so just keep her pants on. You don't want her to be bottomless. Just keep a pair of pants on. It's not difficult, right? I still can't fully understand why that why that wasn't done in favour of a flesh-coloured patch. Weird, right? But yeah, it's always obviously such an iconic scene, and certainly why I always say to people and think of, and why I started this talk here about it being like, this isn't an appropriate film to watch as a youngster, because this scene alone makes it inappropriate, you know, for a youngster to watch in regards to, because it is sex based. It's not just, oh, here's a naked woman, she's dancing sexily. There's the dudes are into it. After that, she has that scene with Suicide, the character Suicide, where basically she's kind of flirting with him and kind of wants to get into it, and he's not in the mood, that kind of thing. Like, it's all obviously sex-based, and that kind of makes it obviously a little bit more inappropriate for a younger audience, a younger person. But obviously the horror as well. Let's not kid ourselves. There are close-ups, it's gory, there are incredibly violent scenes, from Suicide getting his head bitten into, to the scene of these the dwarf zombie eating the brains of the paramedic, to other violent and nasty scenes. There's a lot of stuff going on in this that is just horrible. There are scenes that are just scary, as I've talked about as well, and scenes like, of course, the torso, just the top version. They're talking about, you know, the feeling of being dead, rotting inside and all that. I just thought that was funny and silly as a kid because, you know, she's got flowing long hair and great teeth and eyes, but the rest of her is a rotten corpse. How silly is that? Now I watch that scene and I think it is incredibly acted, really horrible. I mean, think about it. Imagine being reanimated, not by choice, but being reanimated and just finding you could feel yourself rotting from the inside out. And the only way you can ease that pain, and it hurts you, the only way you can ease that pain is to eat the brains of the living. That's fucking incredible. man oh man, but the acting in that scene is stunning as well. God, it's such a great film. I hope you've seen it. I actually hope you've seen this film, or at least you've got an appreciation for it. Maybe not on my level, I understand that. I could certainly happily listen to people debate that it's got this wrong with it and that wrong with it, because I'm always going to agree with you as well. But you would turn around and say to me, oh, it's a terrible movie, I'd just be like, you're joking, right? Of course. But yeah, it is The Return of the Living Dead. I absolutely love it. What do you reckon though? You got any thoughts? You know what to do? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website where reviews, news and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at gbhbl. Just search for gbhbl and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.